In the NBA and any professional sport, winning is the ultimate goal. But when you're playing against the best players in the entire world at that specific sport, it can be very difficult to win at the highest level. But what becomes really impressive is when you win not just one championship, but multiple in a certain period of time. And that is when we have what is called a dynasty. And in the NBA, the league is becoming more and more anyone's league, where all the teams are talented and have very good players in their own right, so it becomes even more difficult to do nowadays. So on today's episode of State of the Association, I'm of course your host, Nash Roberts, and we're taking a look back at the most recent dynasty in NBA history, and one that revolutionized the game in ways that are going to alter it forever, and one that we still absolutely see the effects of today. Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and today we're taking a look back at the Golden State Warriors dynasty, led by Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. Our first notable point here is taking a look at how the Golden State Warriors went out and built this roster, especially the core three of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, because it is really the antithesis of how most front offices operate nowadays. Because this core three that the entire dynasty was built around was created organically, and these are all homegrown players. The Warriors drafted each of them. And nowadays, that just becomes more and more rare. An example of something like this would be the Denver Nuggets a couple years ago, winning that title. But then since then, it's been a team like the Boston Celtics, who, yes, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been there since day one, but they acquired a lot of their starters and key players, whether it's Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White. And I think there is something notable there in the fact that the Boston Celtics at this point have only won one NBA championship, and it was also their first year with that core. But typically, teams will try to make a big trade, a big splash for a star player. And they get the star first, and they ask questions later. You look at a team like the modern-day Phoenix Suns with KD, Booker, and Beal. Those are three very talented players in their own right, even if Beal was kind of on the decline throughout his NBA career. But how well do they really fit on paper? Because they do a lot of the same things. And Booker was always there, but they went out and they traded for KD and for Bradley Beal. And these are two guys who, yes, they weren't the best fits on paper, but they had the star power, they had the name recognition, and Phoenix thought that they could take this roster to the next level, although that ultimately did not end up being the case. But for an example like this Warriors dynasty, they have a lot more of a show of patience and also having chemistry alongside that patience. Because in the backcourt of this dynasty, you've got Klay Thompson and you've got Steph Curry at those guard spots. And these are two guys who fit alongside each other perfectly. They are both top 5 shooters of all time in Klay's case and top 1 in Steph Curry's case. And the way that they were able to play off of each other is just something that we haven't really seen. From most backcourt duos, they're going to be somewhat volatile, and not a lot of defense is being played either, right? But Klay Thompson, he was able to make up for Steph's weaknesses on the defensive end because Klay was a great defender in his own right. And that took this fit in the backcourt to the next level. And their chemistry was amazing. And something else notable about that is that Steph Curry, as a point guard, is more capable of playing off ball than most point guards ever will be. Because of his famed gravity, he can attract a lot of attention from the defense, and as a result, even when he doesn't have the ball, teams are going to lock in on him, and that creates open guys outside of Steph Curry. But you've got to have someone to knock that shot down, that open three-pointer down, and Klay Thompson was just that. Then you add in Draymond Green as well, who's one of the better defenders of all time, and he was able to play alongside Steph as well just as perfectly. Because, yes, as a point guard, as I stated, Steph Curry can have a tendency to play off ball and create opportunities for others that way. But guess what? That means you're going to have a secondary ball handler, and Draymond Green was perfect in that role. He is a great facilitator, a proper point forward, someone who, in spite of their size, someone you might just expect to be a play finisher at that small forward, power forward position, Draymond Green went beyond that and was a great playmaker for others and really set the tone for his Warriors offense and defense. So they fit alongside each other perfectly, which is something that when teams make hasty trades today, we don't see all that often. But something else that we don't see out of the hasty trades, and this really comes down to the principle of a blockbuster trade in itself, is the fact that these guys did not have to be acquired through trade. They, in fact, have been Golden State Warriors since the first day that they stepped on an NBA court. The Golden State Warriors developed all these guys and showed patience like many other teams don't. Steph Curry dealt with injury issues early on in his career, and there was a time where they almost stuck with Monte Ellis instead of him. But they had faith in Steph Curry and his potential in spite of his injuries and stuck with him on the team, and it absolutely paid dividends. They trusted in the talent of all of these guys and gave them plenty of time to develop and learn through in-game reps, and that's something that we really don't see. So those are two things that are really the opposite of what a lot of teams do, especially in the modern NBA, where social media has really amplified, in highlight culture, the idea of we need to really do something. We need to make a big move that's going to get our fan base excited and help the roster out on paper. But in terms of the on-the-court chemistry and all that, it doesn't really work out as well. But the Golden State Warriors are the opposite of that. Then, of course, we get to the shot that has become synonymous with the Golden State Warriors dynasty, and that is, of course, the three-pointer. Coming into the league, Steph Curry was mocked for his shot selection, and if he was deemed as a guy that wasn't going to make it the highest level, it was because of that. And this Curry guy, he took a lot of threes at a time where the NBA really wasn't played that way. You might have some mid-range. That's about the most that you're going to get from a proper shooter. And there were a couple exceptions, guys like Ray Allen. But in general, three-pointers were left for the best of the best, and then other guys didn't have much of a high volume of threes. But Steph Curry comes in, and he pretty quickly makes it clear that this can be an effective winning strategy. You add in Klay Thompson to that mix, another all-time great shooter at this point in time, and it's a match made in heaven. And the Warriors, they go on to live and die by the three, and other teams try to kind of replicate it, and it doesn't work out. You look at the 2018 Houston Rockets, they missed 27 straight threes, and they end up losing to the Warriors. But the Warriors win 4 championships with this core. And in a hyper-competitive league like the NBA, people are going to follow the winners and try to follow their model, see what they do right, and see how they win championships. And like I said, teams like the Houston Rockets, in the past, they would falter in trying to replicate the Warriors because just a simple fact that they were a little bit of an anomaly in the fact that they had two elite all-time shooters that they were able to live and die by a three because most of the time they're not going to die because they're going to be hitting those. And it's really now where we're properly seeing the true extent of the effects because in years after the Warriors won a couple titles, yes, teams would try to follow that perimeter-centric strategy, but what really changed it is the 2024 Boston Celtics, who were another team that lives and dies by a three. Everyone on that starting five can shoot the lights out, even their center, Kristaps Porzingis. And they have a dominant season and a dominant playoff run to win the NBA title. And now this year, we're seeing teams like the Charlotte Hornets that might be near the bottom of the league in three-point efficiency, taking up some of the most in the league. Everyone wants to shoot threes now, and everyone follows the winner, and the Warriors set that precedent originally. It took a little bit of time for another team like Boston to really replicate that to any success, but that is a testament to how well the Warriors executed, and the fact that teams were still trying to do so and repeat what the Warriors did for so long just shows how influential they were. And now we're seeing more three-pointers taken than ever before. And we have one team to thank, and that is this Golden State Warriors dynasty. Now, the elephant in the room here, because I've been talking about this core three of Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. But there is one guy who won a couple Finals MVPs that I haven't mentioned yet. and that it wasn't homegrown, and that is Kevin Durant, who, after the Thunder lose in the Western Conference Finals to the Warriors, blowing a 3-1 lead, joins this Warriors team, who the year prior had a 73-9 record, the best regular season record in NBA history. He joins this Warriors team, and he goes on to win 2 championships with them, and he is Finals MVP both times. So people want to argue that when you talk about this dynasty, you have to include Kevin Durant as a core member of it. But truthfully, Kevin Durant was not what pushed this Warriors team over the top. The year prior to having him, they had the best regular season record in NBA history, and obviously having a guy like Kevin Durant helps. But there were plenty of capable players on this roster by themselves, and the way that they play off of each other in that core three, of course, is just something unprecedented. And even if they had not gotten Kevin Durant, I think that they very well could have won at least one more title. And then, of course, they had the 2022 one as well. They won 2 championships without KD, 2 with KD, but I think they very well could have won 3 without KD, or maybe even 4 like they did with him. He's obviously an uber-talented player, but adding him to the team, he didn't take him over the top because they already were at the top. They were already a top team in the league and probably could have beat the Cavs in truthfully any scenario. That is just how good this team was. And I don't want to discredit Kevin Durant. He was exceptional there. But when you look at this Warriors team, especially when you consider the fact that they won 2 titles without him, and those only came in the middle, and KD joined when they were already really on top of the world, I don't think that KD was necessarily a part of the heartbeat of this team, the way that Curry, Klay, and Draymond are. And I can give KD his flowers all day, but the ones I really want to focus on today, the ones that I believe are the heartbeat of this dynasty, are this core three of Klay, Curry, and Draymond. And especially in seeing the years after Golden State for Kevin Durant, he is kind of an example of what I was talking about earlier, of not necessarily not trusting in chemistry alone, and trying to make blockbuster trades that'll look great on paper, but don't execute in a proper game plan. And we've seen that in KD's failed super teams now, with the Brooklyn Nets and now with the Phoenix Suns. KD was great for the Warriors, but they would have been just fine without him, and just as revolutionary for the way that they take so many threes in a way that every other team has tried to replicate to very little success up until now. And as a result, we're seeing the effects of that three-point revolution more than ever before. And we are seeing more homegrown teams. It really is the antithesis of the modern NBA quite a few times. Teams will try to make so many blockbuster trades. But in recent years, there have been some homegrown teams that have gone out and won titles. The Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis in 2021. The year after that, you've got the Jokic Denver Nuggets. Then you've got the Boston Celtics, who made some blockbuster trades for sure. But their main duo there was Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And those were guys that had been Celtics since day one. So whether it's a lasting effect on the three-point revolution, really creating that revolution, whether it is showing how you can build a proper championship team organically in the face of so many teams that try to do the opposite, the Golden State Warriors were super influential, and it is a dynasty that success may never be replicated again, especially with the rise of parity that we've seen in the modern NBA, where any team can win on any given night. We may never see a dynasty like this Warriors team again. And they deserve all the flowers that they've received, and even more. And that is all for today's episode of State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Thank you for listening. This is not one of my favorite episodes, but I got a new microphone. I kind of want to test that out and just do something for it and take a look back at this Warriors team that was super influential, and just give them all the flowers and appreciate them, because that's what I love to do. There's so much negativity in media nowadays. So why not be the opposite of that? Why not bring people up and talk about a team that was so influential and so great, and we may not have appreciated it in real time because we kept getting Cavs and Warriors in the finals year after year. But in hindsight, we can really look back and appreciate how dominant and influential this team was and how they changed the game in the NBA as we know it today. And that is all for today's episode of State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts.